Hello everyone and welcome back to Data Cloud Now's live coverage of Snowflake Summit in Las Vegas, the world's largest data and AI conference. I'm now joined by Dalloul, VP Azure AI Customer Experience Engineering for Microsoft. Ali, such a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you for having me, appreciate it, Ryan.
Hot off the press, you just wrapped the final keynote at Snowflake Summit. What were the key takeaways?
Yes, I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. It was really a pleasure sharing the stage with Andrew, with Jonathan, with Christian. I mean, three takeaways. I think the first is people understanding how real this is, what is really transformative about it versus what's the hype cycle, how is it different than traditional AI, and how does it create durable enterprise value. I think this was a great topic and a great conversation we had, and people, I think, I hope, walked away understanding it's not, there is hype for sure, but this is very real. And it's very real because of really three things, as I mentioned at the panel. The first is, this technology now allows you to interface in a way that is very natural, the way you and I are communicating. There's no syntax, the interaction model is very human-like. And just like somebody called it the iPhone moment, I think the iPhone lowered the barrier of using a technical device in a very seamless way, the same way people understood how to use appliances, and that's how TVs picked up, that's how other appliances picked up. When you lower the barrier of entry to the technical device of some sort or service, you get mainstream access. So I think we are really at the cusp of this transformation with a natural language interaction model where you communicate with the most advanced technology humans have created in a very natural way. The second is, we are experiencing it in day-to-day with consumers where previously it's been the domain of enterprises. And now consumers are beginning to realize, oh, AI is not just the thing I see in a search engine or on a consumer site of connecting different products or maybe in an Uber. No, AI can really change my life. It can help me become more productive, can really help me become more creative. And I think the third really is that the level of excitement around, what do I need to do as an individual to remain relevant, in this, AI era, was yet another, great takeaway, and where people, you can feel, from the buzz, from the energy going on, that, when you look at, that level of momentum that's happening, there is durability. This is here to stay, and we got to figure out a lot of different challenges, but I think it's here to stay. And I think the other thing is, again, Snowflake being a great, data platform. Really now you have an opportunity of one of the most powerful data platforms on the planet, Snowflake, having a reasoning engine with AI on top of it and establishing a level of intelligence and access to actionable insights and patterns that is really unprecedented. So I think, those are like, great takeaways. Of course, also key use cases that create economic value have all, like customer service, like the creative, side of things, like the business process reinvention. I love the point that Andrew made about AI and romantic relationships don't mix. That was a very, very funny moment. But really, if AI can help enhance human connections, I mean, how powerful is that? To his point, I mean, Andrew made that's a profound point. And we live in an era where, because of COVID, we've come out of a lot of isolation. So, I think, a great discussion, really, very, very deep insights and great engagement from the audience as well.
Thank you for the perspective. As we can hear, the buzz is all around us. You mentioned lowering the bar of entry, and Gen AI and LLMs are absolutely doing that. Really for the non-technical folks as well, how do you see this technology impacting everyday citizens?
Yeah, I think, some of the use cases we spoke about at the panel, Ryan, really are around, like at least, if I'll take the Microsoft framework of what we call a co-pilot, right? Where a co-pilot is really an AI assistant, but fundamentally it's a product philosophy where the human is the pilot, the human is at the center.
Right.
And if you look at just the history of innovation, the history of how human society has evolved, at every point in time, one way or the other, human civilization was about creating tools. Right? And tools are what helped us progress in every different era, from an agricultural era to industrial to digital to now what we call the AI era. And how you take advantage of these tools in your day-to-day life, how you use them in a responsible way, is going to help differentiate your value as an individual, both to your organization, but also to society. Even before the era of generative AI, I mean, we launched something called Seeing AI, and Seeing AI is an application for people with accessibility challenges, the blind, and it was computer vision on a phone that helps you see the world around you, read menus, even go on a hike. I mean, to that extent, just using your phone and computer vision. How transformative is that, when you have people with accessibility being able to use AI and technology in ways that are just profoundly changing of their day-to-day lifestyle and their day-to-day activities. Safety in a lot of the, like cars and automotive and many other, and security cameras and so on, all powered, by AI. And when you look at generative AI, again, you look at the catalyzing of creativity. A lot of people today can, use the generative AI model to create a completely new logo for their website. They can create a completely new visual, representation of their ideas. They can summarize, very, very complex, massive volumes of data really quickly and consume it. They can improve their own consumption of education and how they learn, and how they can interact with a lot of different, services around. And I think, when you look at all of these aspects at the individual level, right, and we are all individuals within a bigger, a broader society, but also organizational structures, around the world. Any improvement you can gain today, through a technological tool like AI, responsibly in this case, that helps you add value back to your community, add value back to your society, add value back to your organization, I think is going to increase your own value and your own impact in the world, on one hand. On the other hand, I think when you look at the complexity of the lives we live today, and how much we have to sift through in terms of just data and the signals and every level of noise that is in our world.
And it's not slowing down.
And it's not slowing down. What you need these tools. Like you really need tools that are going to help you think through and sift through that. So I genuinely believe that AI will, I'm an optimist, so AI will improve human life, again, responsibly done in a very grounded way, and I do feel that every individual will benefit from that in one way or another.
I want to stick with this theme of the era of Gen AI. For the audience watching, what should individuals and companies be doing now in order to be successful in this new era of Gen AI?
Yeah, I think, let's look at the individual first, and then we'll talk about the enterprise and the organization. I think the individual needs, I was saying at the panel, I'll repeat what I said, you need to be a lifelong learner. I mentioned that if I just go by what I learned about AI when I was in college, and they were back then called expert systems, and they were rule-based systems, I would be unemployed today. That's a fact. I tell this to my 2 teenage boys who are, one of them going to college soon, and I'm like, you need to continue to evolve and learn, and every day you have to apply a growth mindset of embracing what is new in a responsible way, but also applying your own value system to it. And that is, I think, really very important.
The personal context.
The personal context, because you can't just embrace things without applying a certain framework and a certain set of parameters. So I say lifelong learning, focus, right? You don't have to be an expert in every domain of AI. AI is now very complex, it's very broad. I certainly do not know everything about AI in spite of the fact I'm a practitioner of it every day. But understand back to your role, whether you're an educator, whether you're a doctor, whether you're an engineer, whether you are a HR professional. How do you apply this in your day-to-day life in a way that improves your ability to do a better job, to whoever stakeholders that you serve, right? Education, for example, I gave the example of my kids in their school, and the school, I did a presentation at school, and they asked, what should we do about ChatGPT? And my immediate response was, embrace it. And their concern was, what about plagiarism? What about cheating? What about the kids not learning? And I said, well, first they're going to do it whether you like it or not. And if you don't get ahead of that and you don't embrace it, you're actually putting these kids at a disadvantage. The second is, as we were discussing earlier, Ryan, is today a lot of these kids, including I'll start with my kids, they need the human touch. They need the human skill. What if you can offload a lot of the cognitive load to an AI that helps you think through more clearly, but then your human side shines, your communication abilities. The reason I'm sitting right here in front of you is because I worked so hard on my communication abilities. I worked so hard on being able to articulate, key points. I worked so hard on being present without being shy and not being, anxious about it. But that takes years of practice and years of being, in the front line, in hard conversations.
And constantly working at it.
Constantly working at it and so on. And if I can do more of that by offloading a lot of that work to AI, imagine how better society would be in terms of just bridging communication skills and having a better way to communicate and orate and so on. So I think, that's one area, I would say at the individual level, and really, don't be afraid of FOMO, fear of missing out. Like that's not a healthy way of thinking about the world. Look at, what do you want to learn about the basics and where do you want to apply that in your day-to-day life? And I would say start there. I think on the enterprises, I would start with, at the top level, at the CEO level, at the C-suite level, what is keeping them awake at night? What are the 4 or 5 problems they have in their core business? And it varies, like for example, retail. A CEO of retail is worried about, number one, loss prevention. There's so much theft, there's so much waste, there's so much expired products. It's costing the US economy billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in that regard. Any CEO in retail is worried about crime in retail. They're worried about the safety of their employees. They're worried about the productivity of their employees and so on. So every industry leader
has their own challenges.
Has their own challenges. And work back from that and say, if these are my top 5 things, where does AI apply? In some cases, AI doesn't apply at all. And we should be very honest and say, AI can't solve the problem. And I think that is a very important starting point, which is also understanding what AI cannot do versus, hey, AI can solve every problem. It doesn't. But it can solve a lot of problems. And if you work back from that problem and say, what is the true north? And how does AI create value? How does it extract inefficiencies in the overall, organization? Where do I maximize the return for my shareholders and my employees? How do I look at, improving my employee productivity without working them 80 hours a week? How do I improve my employee morale? Like, I gave the example of developers. We did a study with our GitHub Copilot where we looked at, developers using GitHub Copilot to generate code. And if anybody who's coded will tell you, a lot of coding, there's a little bit of fun at the beginning, and then it becomes very grudgery, repetitive.
A lot of back end.
A lot of back end, a lot of maintaining code, and then over time it's like, it becomes job security more than innovation, and and any developer worth it will tell you, what, I wish I could offload the maintenance part of the job. And we found that people using GitHub Copilot to generate code or even maintain code had 75% better satisfaction on the job and had about a 50% improvement in their day-to-day productivity. So you look at that and you say, okay, if I'm a CEO, if I'm a leader of my industry, am I addressing the real pain points of the business? Am I applying the right technology? Am I developing a responsible competitive advantage that's going to help my company be relevant, going forward? The challenge also, on the other hand, again, not to get in the FOMO world, if you don't do that, the risks are even higher because your competition...
You're going to be left behind.
Yes, your competition is already embracing that. They're finding new ways. And I give the example of Amazon. Who would have guessed? A bookstore, Bezos driving in his car with his wife from Wall Street, coming to Seattle, building a company that today is so dominant, right? Why? He applied ML in the machine learning techniques way before anybody else. And he understood, if you can apply statistical models, you can apply AI behind the scenes in a commerce environment, and you can understand the consumer behavior, and you can attach and cross-sell and upsell, you can create a completely different platform effect, and here we are, right? So these are just examples where, Uber is another example. Uber was about disrupting the inefficiencies in the transportation taxi ecosystem, which has been a very, very stable, business for a very long time. And, some of these drivers, their life dream was get a driver.
Get a medallion.
Yes, okay, and then, oh, well, there's a disruption here happening. If you apply AI, you have a platform, you can do on-demand, transportation, you change the game. Tesla, another example where AI in the car, Tesla is a computer. It's not really a car, it's a computer with AI, with wheels and an engine, electric engine behind it. And now suddenly you have, a computer on wheels that is also scanning the environment, building up the data, understanding how to develop even more value on top of so these are just examples of where I think the value creation is going to continue, and I think the disruption is going to continue, and leaders who embrace that and understand it at a strategic level are going to survive and thrive, again, doing it responsibly in a very grounded way.
Well, I really appreciate your insights and great to have you here at Snowflake Summit. We're running to the top of the segment, but I have to ask, major takeaways from the panel. How does it feel to be here at Snowflake Summit in Las Vegas? The buzz and energy is all around us right now.
It feels great, and thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate being here. I took away more than I gave, and I feel good because I want to learn something every day. So yeah, the energy, the buzz, the excitement, very happy, and we announced also a partnership with Snowflake recently, and that's a great partnership that we look forward to further expanding.
An exciting next chapter. Thank you so much for joining me on Data Cloud Now.
All right.
And for the audience watching, I'm Ryan Green. We'll see you soon.